Welcome back to another episode of Marvel News Desk, your best place to keep up with all the latest news, reviews, and speculation concerning Marvel films and TV shows. We've got our usual panel today, but at an unusual time, so we might sound a little groggy. We've got Adam and Rhiannon. How are you guys doing?
Awesome.
Great. Getting by.
I'll have you know, they both lifted their intensity like 8 notches from what they were before the show started.
Gotta put your game face on, man.
Right.
That's right, man.
It's all about the people that give us money on Patreon. I should say it's all about the listeners, not just those that give us their money.
Seriously, Adam.
Yeah.
We care about those, other thousands of people that aren't Patreon.
We care about everyone here.
We want to encourage you guys to subscribe to us on YouTube. That's watch.marvelnewsdesk.com. Also, you can check out the other podcast on our Marvel News Desk site. That's AP Marvel. This week, they have a special guest who I didn't look up ahead of time. Who was it? What site was it from?
It has the guy from Now You See It video essays on YouTube.
Definitely check that out. That would be awesome. Also, as Adam mentioned, we would love to encourage you to join us on Patreon. That helps keep the show going. I mention it because this time of year, we're going to get close to releasing our annual episode, which is a special episode that is only available to our Patreon supporters. If you really like this show and want to get yourself a nice little Christmas present, give us $1 and you can hear that episode. Or give it for your, I don't know. Are you listening right now as a spouse captive in a car with a loved one who plays this show and you hate it? Give us $1 so that you can do something nice for your spouse. I mean, it's the giving season. But seriously, we do a special episode.
If they give us $5, then their spouse will watch us live when we're recording and they won't have to listen to it in the car with them.
There you go. These guys are clearly better at marketing than I am. But this time of year we record this special episode, and so that's going to probably be closer to New Year's than Christmas, if I remember everybody's schedule right. But nonetheless, it will happen during our kind of hiatus from podcasting, so we'd love for you guys to support us on Patreon. It helps keep the show going, and we'll also give you some bonus content. So check that out there. All right, this week, we have so much to talk about in trailers. We're not going to talk too much about news, but there was 2 pieces of news I thought that were big enough we have to talk about. The first is that we found out that Marvel is working on a Shang Chi movie. If you remember a couple weeks ago, that hashtag show told us there was a new screenwriter that was working on something and we didn't know what it was. Well, it turns out it's Shang Chi, Master of Kung Fu. Adam, for our viewers who don't know Shang-Chi super well, do you want to explain who this character is and kind of a little bit of the background of Shang-Chi?
Yeah, you pretty much explained it pretty well, man. Shang-Chi's the master of Kung Fu, and that's really all you have to it. You don't have anything like Iron Fist where the mysticism or the mystical aspect to it, he's just a character that's really good at kicking butt. I think maybe Starlin had a hand in developing him, but yeah, that's about it. It's comic books. He's had stints with the Avengers. He's had stints with Heroes for Hire. And I'm already lobbying to get Iron Fist in the movie in a supporting role. But yeah, I think it's going to be it's yet another movie that Marvel's never ever done before. I almost picture it like I'm not sure if pulpy's the right word, but the 70-ish kung fu movies, kind of like a Kill Bill-esque type movie. Just another thing that they're doing that still has yet another look and feel and tone, and it's the MCU's first Asian-led movie, right?
So, Adam, from what you're describing, Kill Bill-esque, why is this a show? Why is this? Because this is a character that everybody's been saying should be a movie. I don't know much about them, and what you're describing doesn't sound like movie to me, Marvel movie to me. It sounds like indie, but what will make this feature film worthy?
Kill Bill was an incredibly poor connection, I guess, or
Crouching Tiger.
comparison.
Hidden Dragon?
I'm not a kung fu. Kung fu's kind of. I'm not even sure if that's the right terminology. Martial arts movies.
Yeah, I mean, really, Shang-Chi happened because of Bruce Lee.
Right.
Like, it's really ridiculous. Like, when Bruce Lee took off in the United States, like 3 months later, Marvel came out with Shang-Chi. He deserves to get rights, I think, because it's basically him in a comic book.
Right. It's and it kind of came out the same type of era that Luke Cage did with the whole blaxploitation thing. So a lot of the earliest stuff is pretty cringeworthy to read. Yeah, it's not. I didn't mean to compare it to Kill Bill, but it's.
Well, no, I mean that's fine. I'm curious what makes this a feature film. What makes this character the lead in a movie? Me not knowing much about him. Like, why him and not the guy with the glowing fist?
Right. It's not the type of thing I would guess there doesn't have to be spectacular, computer-generated visual effects. I would guess it's more going to be a spectacle towards stunts and fights and things of that nature, the crazy stuff they can do with that. I don't know. I mean, it's not like Shang-Chi has to fight a dragon or anything like that. He's a pretty normal guy, and he doesn't really have powers. I think later on there was a thing where he made what's Madrix do? Multiple Man. He kind of creates duplicates of himself, I guess. But that was very recent.
I have a reason why they're making it, and it's very cynical, but I think it's totally right. They're making it because of the Chinese box office.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally get that.
I mean, Marvel's looking at it and they go, we have a character who is Chinese. And, I mean, look at Venom. As long as you can get the Chinese box office to be excited about something, you can make a lot of money. And so I think this is very much, I think some of it is there's a legitimate, good-hearted, like Black Panther kind of thing where they want to create the best character that provides them an opportunity to give Asian filmmakers kind of the same platform that they gave African and African-American filmmakers with Black Panther. And so there's that. And then on top of it, they're really confident they could film the thing in China with a Chinese star, and it'll make $200 or $300 million just in China alone. So I think that's part of it more than even the character. But he also there's a lot of people on Twitter that are super pumped about him. So he has some kind of cult following that's interesting.
Yeah, and I have no doubt. I mean, I was just like, yes, I think it's awesome that they're making more diverse movies, and I know they're giving a lot of opportunities for Asian actors and directors and writers on this. Yeah, I've just, like, from everything I've heard about him, I'm like a Hawkeye movie, like a Black Widow movie, these are very down-to-earth characters. Yeah, it's interesting. We see a lot of, I mean, the sort of lowest budget of the movies that we've seen in the last phases has been Ant-Man, who still has some pretty, major special effects and stuff that goes into his characters. So it's kind of interesting to see on this upcoming slate, like with Black Widow and with Shang-Chi, the direction they're going with some of this.
I love it because they can't escalate much more. I mean, they killed half of everyone in the entire cosmos in Infinity War. And so, if they keep trying to quote-unquote up the game, it's going to get kind of ridiculous and redundant. So I really like the impulse of, hey, after we're done with Endgame, let's go ahead and bring it back down and do some Black Widow and Shang-Chi and just make some cool espionage thriller. A lot of people have mentioned, Michael T. Ford mentioned in the live chat, James Bond has been kind of an influence a lot on Shang-Chi lately, that he's kind of become international spy guy. And so I'm excited to see them scale back because they can't keep scaling up. It's impossible.
He's been a pretty good starring or supporting character. Who wrote that? Is it Gail Simone? Wrote the latest Domino run? And I've really enjoyed it. It's probably going to win a Eisner or something, so that's definitely a run they could look at, especially now that they will have a certain mercenary named Domino.
Our other bit of news that I wanted to talk about, Black Panther nailed a ton of nominations this week for several different things. Golden Globe nominations came out, and it was nominated for Best Picture Drama, as well as Best Original Score and Best Original Song. Then the Grammys came out, and the Black Panther soundtrack got nominations for for Album of the Year. The All of the Stars got Song, Record, and Rap Sung Performance and Song for Visual Media nominations, and The King is Dead got Rap Performance and Rap Song nominations. So Kendrick Lamar kind of led the way for this year's Grammy noms, and if it sounds weird that a soundtrack could win any of this, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou did that just very thing about 15 years ago, where it won Album of the Year as a soundtrack. Do you guys feel like it's more possible that this thing actually might win some Oscars now that we're seeing these other accolades start to pile up?
I think it's so Oscar-wise. I think it's definitely. If I was a bad man, I would say that it does get a nomination for Best Picture. I would think, especially with the whole popular film or popular movie weird thing that went on. I would say Black Panther probably at least gets the Best Picture nomination. Outside of that, I'm not sure. Maybe Best Director or Cinematography. Or didn't the cinematographer win the Oscar last year? I don't know. I don't know if it could get Best Picture, man. I think it'll at least get a nomination, though.
I think it'll get a nomination. I think at this point they almost have to. And then there's a lot more sound categories in the Oscars than there are the Golden Globes, I think. So, I think they'll have some sound, with all of this Grammy hype, they'll have some maybe sound categories and such.
I just find it interesting because, about half the Oscar race is making a good enough movie that you get nominated. But then a lot of it is this, like, what is the momentum? What is, like, the public opinion? Like, who's got, like a lot of like juice going for them at the end, which is part of the reason why I thought Black Panther was sunk, because it was put out in February. But when I start seeing all these nominations rolling up for the Golden Globes and then rolling up again for the Grammy, like, I just could see a world in which, like, the love for this movie kind of builds and builds and builds, and it really does create, in Hollywood, they love to give awards that will make them feel good about themselves. So, like, they're like, hey, look, we're rewarding black filmmaking. If that's pure motived or just like gross motives, whatever. Like, I could just see a lot of Hollywoods being like patting themselves on the back, like, oh, look what we're doing. We're so good. We're so special. Like, the more good things that come out for this movie, the more I can just see that you could get the kind of momentum train where they would be they'd be like, you know what? We're so sophisticated. We're willing to give genre films credit now. I mean, we're trying to move past our history. Like, I just can see a narrative where this could actually succeed, and I feel more hopeful about it than ever before because I did not. I think it's already doing better than I thought it would with some of the awards. We talked about National Board of Review last week. I just think it's really exciting for Black Panther that this kind of stuff is starting to get the snowball effect, which is what you really have to have Oscar time. I also should have looked this up, but it'll be really interesting to see when the final voting deadline is for the Oscars versus when the Grammys happen. Because if the dates are just right, that like Kendrick Lamar and Black Panther can sweep the Grammys and win a lot of awards, and everybody is like real excited about it, and the ballots are due 5 days later for the Oscars, that could be wonderful timing for this movie. All right, you guys want to talk about trailers? We got a couple of big ones this week.
Did we?
We did. Let's start with Captain Marvel. I'll ask this first on both of them. Did you enjoy the trailer?
I was underwhelmed. I wasn't surprised. There was nothing in it that increased my excitement level. I was underwhelmed.
The first showing, I was underwhelmed because I even mentioned that in the Slack chat. But at the same time, I was tasked with already pulling out pieces and starting to write pieces off of it. But as I continued watching it, it did kind of grow on me a bit. There was a lot of visual things, and theories that came to mind that kind of made me a lot more excited. And I mean the space battles and stuff. Those look super dope.
Yeah, I had a good time with it, but it seems that they have a very, I think the marketing team has a very focused and particular thing that they want to do with the marketing of this movie. And because of that, the two trailers felt a little bit redundant in that they were trying to do similar things with both trailers. A lot of times with Marvel, you see the first trailer and then the second one, and it's like, oh, okay, the first one was setting up thing A, and then thing B happens in the second trailer to give us kind of two pieces of the marketing strategy. This kind of felt like, no, we've got a plan A, and we did plan A again. There's a lot of focus on her past and her history and her growing up and kind of the female empowerment stuff, which obviously they want to do. Mistaken identity, Kree, but yeah, it just didn't feel like there was a lot of new material being shared, either plot wise or thematically. So I think that's where some of that kind of like feeling comes from, is that we don't know a whole lot more about this movie than we did before this trailer, right?
Right.
Right? And we don't know much more about the character. I mean, she doesn't know who she is. You know, she has this troubled past that left her with Superman-esque powers. Okay. Cool. I mean, I think it takes a lot for a superhero movie to stand out these days. And there wasn't much that really got me going.
Yeah, I'm not even going to attempt to start piecing together the plot. There's just so many. It's almost like time travel, but without the time travel, with the whole wiped memory and stuff. And I'm pretty sure the Air Force stuff obviously has to come first. But then there's Skrull stuff and then Kree Skrull Wars. I don't know. I'm not even going to start thinking about it.
Now, I still overall finished the trailer really pumped because, as you said, Adam, the stuff that shows her flying through space in the suit with like a fire mohawk, like blowing up spaceships and everything. I'm a simple man to please, okay? You give me cool explosions, I'm pretty much on board. And so I just loved some of that space battle stuff. I think you're the one that mentioned, Adam, like they have a chance to do some of these Star Wars like space, like epic fights between, with ships and lasers, and like if they really go full on Kree Skrull War, which they kind of hint at with that one shot with Ronan, they have a chance to do something visually we haven't really seen yet. I mean, the closest would be the when the Nova Corps tried to expel Ronan's ship back in Guardians, but I'm just excited for that flavor. Like the idea of seeing somebody with this amount of power, making her way through like an armada of Skrull ships sounds really cool and really exciting to me. Adam, I know you've talked about this a little bit before. So Annette Bening appears in this trailer. You have some theories on who you think she is?
I have some theories, and it's a hill I'm about to die on. It is a hill I will die on. I think they might go this route. I think they might make her the Supreme Intelligence. Okay, so for those who don't know, do you two know what the Supreme Intelligence is? It's essentially, you guys know the floating head from Power Rangers? The Supreme Intelligence is pretty much that. It's a big head that's kept in this huge jar that essentially rules the Kree Empire. I think the Marvel Legends wave, the toy packaging said that the Supreme Intelligence is going to be in the movie. But I don't think it's going to be a thing I think it's going to be a lot like Ego the Planet, right? We got the one shot of Ego, really. But for the rest of the movie, obviously, it was Kurt Russell acting as an avatar of Ego. And I think that's maybe something that they'll do for this. I don't know. It just makes sense to me. And the way Annette Bening, the few words she did say in the trailer, she acted very almost like royalty. Or, obviously it was clear she was a leader of some sort. So that's kind of... to me, I picture that scene playing out as Uh, Carol's trying to find more information about, her past or whatever, and the Supreme Intelligence floating head thing makes an avatar to show Carol around Hala or something. I guess that's my 2 cents at least.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know why. I really want to see a scene with like Glenn Close and Annette Bening now, like the Nova and the Kree, like if she was the Supreme Intelligence, like the two of them in like a standoff over some kind of like war or something. I don't know. Like just the idea that they have all these great, powerful women actors that are now taking up these positions of kind of the royalty or the rulers of these cosmic empires, I think is fun. I don't know why. I just enjoy those things together. So
the other theory that I've seen plenty of times is that she's actually Marvel, which was pretty solid as well, and that's probably a lot closer to accurate than the Supreme Intelligence thing. I know there would be several fanboys upset with that, but I think it's a pretty solid theory.
So here's what I don't get. People keep saying, well, somebody has to be Marvel because the title has to be passed down to Carol. Why, again?
I don't think it has to. I'll agree with you on that. I think it would just be cheesy as crap actually having someone named Marvel. I guess I don't understand it. I mean, in Carol's origin, obviously that's a big part from her moving to Miss Marvel to Captain Marvel. Marvel getting cancer and dying. But even then, they've redone Carol Danvers' origin so much leading up to the movie. I think they just retconned her origin in the new series that just came out, 2 weeks ago or whatever.
Yeah. I heard that they actually said she was born as Care-El, which I think is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I haven't even read that.
Aww.
That's cringeworthy, though.
Good
Lord.
It's stupid and it seems derivative of Superman simultaneously,
And the one thing I've learned about comics so far is they most certainly pander to the movie audience. I mean, you look at Yondu, and Yondu went from looking completely different to instantly matching, Michael Rooker with little to no explanation story-wise whatsoever. And you see that across all sorts of... I mean, Cloak and Dagger came out and they instantly decided to do a new series. So yeah, I'm not claiming that... I don't know who even wrote the new Captain Marvel one. Kelly Thompson, maybe? I don't know. I'm not claiming they know what's going on, but I would guess they have some general sense of direction. Speaking of comics, did you read the Avengers 4 Prelude?
No, I told you. I'm not doing it anymore. You can take your Prelude comics, Marvel, and you can shove them, okay? I'm not doing this crap anymore.
Don't do it. It's spoiler alert. It's literally the scene on the Asgardian spaceship. That's it. Word for word. Some of them are good, but not this one.
Let's talk real quick before we finish Captain Marvel. Let's talk about the villains. So we see a little bit more of Skrulls. We see Mendelsohn being a CIA kind of guy. We also get this sense that Carol really is brainwashed. She's very positive about the Kree, like, we're noble warriors. And you can kind of see it being set up for, like, her realizing the world is more complex than just my guys are good and their guys are bad. In the end, and then there's also talk, spoilers if you have not seen this in a million places, about Jude Law's true identity, maybe being villainous itself. I mean, we've talked a million times on this podcast that we think he's Jan Rog. And there may be good reason to think that. In the end, who do you think is going to be truly the villain of this movie? Like, are the Skrulls going to end up being the good guys? Are they both going to be the bad guys? What's going on here?
So the only reason they are being secretive on Law's character is because he's Yanrog. Because they released that and everyone instantly knows he's a villain. That's Marvel's arch nemesis. they're going to incredible lengths to hide it too. I mean, there was the Funko Pop leak that had Jan Rog. That came out last week or whatever, and then literally the next day, Funko sent out a press release calling him Star Force Commander. Completely different mock-ups and things of that nature of the box. So I'm gonna say Jude Law's probably going to be the big bad. I would guess the Kree Skrull War is kind of going to be this. I'm not sure if you want to call it a secondary plot or a subplot of sorts. And I mean, she's going to live most of her life on screen thinking the Skrulls are the bad guys, but she only bought into that mindset because that war was a part of, Jan Rog's agenda of sorts. And I would guess Ronan's kind of almost Jan Rog's second-hand man, and something ends up happening to Jan Rog, which launches Ronan into his extremist phase. But I mean, it feels like for as cool as the Skrulls are, they most certainly are a afterthought, maybe? Is that the right word? Would you guys agree with that or not? It almost feels like it. And I would guess the visual effects aren't completely done and all that stuff, but it just seems like, at least in the trailers, they've kind of been put on the back burner.
I just feel they've kind of glossed over the Skrulls so far. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's not much. If you didn't already know all of this history of it and what's going on and everything, okay, there's an old lady that turns into something else. So there's some sort of shapeshifter type people. I would assume the Skrulls were bad guys. Is there a world where the Skrulls are not bad guys?
I think the Kree Skrull War is one I think Earth is relatively neutral on.
Yeah.
Like, there's kind of this sense of like, it'd be like if China and Russia went to war with each other. Where would we stand? We'd be like, I don't know. We don't love either of those guys,
Yeah, and I mean, Skrulls as a whole aren't bad. I mean, there's oftentimes they're put into comics as comedic relief or as retconning and such stuff of that nature. But I mean, they aren't inherently bad, I guess.
I mean, what you're describing there, if she is a person being used as a pawn for this intergalactic war, there's so much of a story there that they're not telling in these trailers. There's so much to that we aren't seeing that would make this so much more interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a little hint when she says, "I'm not going to fight your war. I'm going to end it."
Yeah, but that's just.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing that it's not clear. I'm just saying that's the one place that they started to go that way a little bit, I think.
The bigger question is, why is the Kree Empire always at war? Like, we have the Kree Skrull War, and then fast forward 20-some years, and they're going to be in this Kree Xandarian War?
Well, who could trust a country that was constantly at war throughout the entire existence of their nation? I mean, we don't know any countries like that whatsoever.
No, none of them.
It was funny because my wife was actually saying, as we were talking about Captain Marvel and stuff, she's like, I don't think I like Captain Marvel because she's with the Kree. And I was like, well, why do you care? And she's like, I've watched these movies with you. The Kree are always bad guys. Ronan is a bad guy. All those blue guys that show up on Earth and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they're bad guys. The blue guys up in space in the future on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are bad guys. I didn't realize it, but she has seen the Kree in like 3 or 4 contexts now, and they're always terrible. And so she's like, why is she hanging out with these terrible like creatures, And it was interesting to see her perspective on that, because I know there's blue Kree and there's pink Kree, and Captain Marvel was a Kree, but he loved Earth, and I have all that, and she's like, no, I've watched these movies and these TV shows, and they're always bad. Why do I want her to be with them?
And with your wife.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to Avengers Endgame. So, I'm sure we have a lot to talk about. Did you guys enjoy the trailer, first of all?
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
How could you not? I mean, who didn't?
So, I don't know if I even have this in my notes. What did you think about how long this trailer came? It's like, It's funny because I tweeted about 10 minutes before it hit like the internet when I was like, man, if Marvel doesn't stop this soon, they're going to create a bad problem. You know, like, I'd like to take credit actually for the trailer being dropped. They saw my tweet and they're like, oh, you're right, Caleb. We got to put this trailer out. But
just moments later.
Exactly. What do you think of the build up to this? And like, before we even get to the trailer, like all the crap that happened around this over the last like 3 or 4 weeks.
Let's preface it by saying Marvel Studios did absolutely nothing wrong. I mean, any and all problems were entirely fan generated. Marvel did nothing wrong whatsoever. I mean, they don't owe us a trailer by any means. I don't get the whole hubbub. I mean, people got into it, man. The internet. I mean, talk about Twitter. I mean, it's just, and that's the thing. I mean, has fandom always been crazy and Twitter's just exposing it? Or is Twitter kind of giving this platform to...
Fandom has always been crazy. It's just that now they're able to send journalists death threats when a trailer isn't dropped when they think it should be dropped. I mean, I think there's extreme excitement over this movie. I think there's people desperate for answers, desperate for something new. If Marvel had any role in it, it was that they completely withheld any information until when they wanted it to be shared. And I think you're right, Adam. They owe nothing.
They owe nothing to us.
I disagree a little bit. Here's what I think. First of all, I think part of the reason this got so gross is because the journalists / bloggers / people who have Twitter accounts got kind of petty. Like, it became this competition. Like, you know, it was like this giant sausage measuring contest of like, oh, I know when the trailer's coming out and you don't. And then they kind of got fighting. And then now everybody has a side that they want to win. And so they get really mad when their guy didn't predict the right trailer date. You know, like, there was kind of that weird thing where, like, we're picking journalists like we pick politicians, and then we're desperate for our journalists to win. That seems odd to me that we had happen here. But I think the bigger thing for me with Marvel, they didn't just market this like a regular movie. Like, this whole shenanigans of not telling us the name when the name was Avengers Endgame. Like, it was kind of artificially building hype to me. It's not like when that name hit, people fell out of their chairs like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. You know, like, it's not like it was Avengers, like, Secret Invasion or something. You know, like, it wasn't something that was super meaningful. It's something that a bunch of people, like, predicted a long time ago that we've seen floating around for a while. It just felt to me like, I don't know. Sometimes one of our kids will be teasing one of the other kids or keeping a toy away from them. And it gets to a point where, like, it really is overblown. It's like, just be nice. Just let them have it. And then the other kid hauls off and punches them because they're so frustrated. It's kind of on the first kid for withholding something for so long. You know, like, you kind of provoked them into being ridiculous. And I feel like Marvel kind of provoked people. Just put out the darn trailer already. Like, we don't... Why is there all this crazy build-up?
I think there's two pieces to it. The trailer and the name. I will agree with that sentiment on the name. But, I mean, trailer-wise, it was... I mean, we're talking... It's only, 5 days after they released the Infinity War trailer? It's not like it's been weeks after the Infinity War trailer or something. It's perfectly in time with the Infinity War trailer. And even before then, just fandom was going absolutely berserk. And it was, I mean, I can say it was supposed to drop on Wednesday. That's when the trailer was supposed to drop. It was supposed to be Captain Marvel Monday and Avengers 4 on Wednesday. But there was the day of mourning and such, and obviously they didn't want to get into that type of scenario. So we got to, I mean, we're talking, it wasn't even a week after they released the Infinity War trailer. I mean...
And there was no taunting. I mean, that's what, you know, they didn't even do...
They weren't...
Sometimes, I mean, like, I fully expected Marvel to do a little trailer coming tomorrow. And they didn't do any of that.
Damn.
They were just like, here's your movie.
So let me ask you, all of the false, hey, it's going to come out tomorrow, or, oh, I heard that this is going to drop on Wednesday, some of that was legitimate people at Marvel leaking information that then Marvel changed their mind on. Or what, do you think it was just journalists making stuff up, or bloggers making stuff up? Or did Marvel send out some false signals back channel?
There's multiple pieces to this. So the Wednesday thing was legit. Outside of that, I have no idea. I know it was originally supposed to come out Wednesday up until a week or so ago. But then there's other pieces. I mean, there was a situation last night, another death threat situation to the CNN entertainment writer, whatever. I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but he sat down with the Russo brothers, whatever, so long ago, and he interviewed the Russo brothers and asked them point blank, is Avengers 4 going to be titled Avengers Endgame? To which they said, no, it's not going to be Avengers Endgame. To which he runs it on CNN, which is one of the biggest news platforms in the world, and then obviously sites pick it up, so people are, oh, this aged well and things like that. So I guess that I have a problem with. There's a difference between Kevin Feige saying, no, I don't know what the plans are for Hawkeye, and saying, no, Hawkeye's not going to appear in the Avengers 4 trailer when he actually is.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, I guess that's kind of my biggest problem with it all right now. I mean, I know a certain site already has, kind of the reputation about pushing all sorts of crap out. All these sites do listicles and all sorts of things like that, but, I mean, it certainly doesn't help when the studio's actually pushing a false narrative, I guess. Right? And this is coming from a full-time comic journalist point of view, right? But I mean, it doesn't seem like that's a move with integrity, right? There should be at least some integrity there to at least say something truthful instead of purposefully.
Or no comment.
Yeah,
no
I think
comment
that's different.
is a fine thing to say.
Yeah.
If it's exactly fine, but to intentionally say no, it's not Avengers Endgame when it is. I mean, we're talking about CNN here, right?
Was that recent, or was that a
no,
year ago?
That article was pushed out in April. So, I mean, that's the other thing. Maybe at the time, it wasn't Avengers Endgame, but I have a feeling Endgame's been the title all along. It's just so friggin' anticlimactic.
So that's what I was going to ask next. Do you guys, Adam, sounds like you're not super excited about the title.
I was kind of super interested at first, and now it's growing. Me and the title and I are growing apart from each other. Each time I see it just doesn't.
Last night you asked, what's the opposite of growing on me? I think it's shrinking on you, is what you're saying.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So the title is shrinking on me. We'll go with that.
It's wearing on you.
It's wearing it. It doesn't seem like it's a movie. Every time I type it, every time I read it, it almost feels like it's like a new mobile app, a new mobile game. I mean, they have like Marvel Strike Force and Marvel. It just seems too meta. Is that the right description? It just seems too. When I see Avengers Endgame, I picture the score sounding like something that's played at like a monster truck rally. I don't know why. It just seems like it's too superhero. And I realize that sounds stupid as hell because it's going to be a superhero movie that features 50 plus superhero. It just seems too. I will say this. I prefer it to Annihilation.
Rhiannon, do you have thoughts on Endgame as a title?
I mean, I was prepared for the title to be underwhelming. Feige told us to prepare to be underwhelmed. I think it's simple. I don't think it's exciting. I mean, around the office right afterwards, I was like, what do you think of Avengers Endgame? And they're like, whatever. Like, I'm just so glad we get the other Avengers movie. I think that's... I don't think the title will matter. I think the word Avengers matters, and the second part is irrelevant.
My general take, I think it bothers us because they've been using comic titles. Like Age of Ultron is a great example where they used the title from a comic that had nothing to do with the plot, but like comic fans were like, ooh, yay, Age of Ultron, like they're used to saying it. And so it's weird that it's a title that's not a comic title, except for the new Guardians run, I guess, apparently. But, so that's odd, but I think it speaks to something. The Russo brothers are making a totally different movie here. Like, this movie is not a derivative of any comic in any way, as far as I can tell. Like, Infinity War legitimately had roots in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. But I get the sense that with Endgame, we're going to a totally new place, so it makes sense. I'm wondering if it's going to be like Spider-Man Homecoming. I hated Spider-Man Homecoming as a title when it first came out. And then after I saw the movie, I was like, oh, wow, that felt like, okay, it felt right. You know, like the film lived into the title. So I'm hoping that by the time I'm done watching Endgame, I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. So
There's that optimism.
hey, man, I'm a sunny, happy guy. All right, what did you guys think of Ronin? We finally saw saw Hawkeye return. We saw a little bit of the Ronin costume. Just for those keeping track at home, this is Ronin with an I, not Ronin with an A. That's
You
the
guys
difference.
have confused the crap out of me all week with that. I'm like, I do not see Ronin in this trailer. What the heck are you talking about?
Yeah. So yeah, Ronin the Accuser, I believe, is Ronan, and this is
Yes.
Ronin Ronin.
Somebody once said that it's pronounced Ronin, right? Someone said that in the comment section, but I don't buy that. I have every single person. Ronin. Let's just call him Ronin.
I'm sorry, but in the original Japanese, it's Ronin. It's important that you pronounce things the right way. No, I mean, no one's going to say Ronin
That
that
accent
way.
doesn't even make sense, Caleb.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Isn't Ronin a Japanese word?
I don't know.
Was that supposed to be your Japanese accent?
No, that was my nerd
like an
accent.
old lady in the basement.
Yeah, that was like parkour Marge from Captain Marvel. Old lady Marge that knows how to fight. I hope she's not even a Skrull. It's just some old lady that loves to fight.
I should have added some snorts in there to make it clear it was a nerd. Like, well, actually, yes, I believe that it's pronounced Ronin. Yes.
Much better.
Okay, that's a better one. Yeah, you can cut that however you want, Rhiannon, when you edit this. Which
Oh
I'm
no,
guessing
I'm
will
leaving
be.
in the heckling.
Yeah, you're gonna leave it all in. Awesome. So anyway, did you like the design? I mean, I felt like I loved all that stuff with Barton. He looked awesome. I felt like it was well acted, given that it was only 2 seconds, and I'm all in for this.
I think
character
I think they're going full Ronin costume too. I didn't notice that at first, but he takes off like a morph suit mask, like that thin black mask. He takes out. I thought they were just giving him a hood, but. Nah, they're going full Ronin. It looks great too. At least the arm guards or whatever.
In that split second that we saw Barton, I was like, oh, there's the Clint I've been wanting in the MCU. There's the the person that lives on coffee, talks to their dog, and goes about shooting things with arrows. Like, I'm excited that we might actually get the Barton that I've wanted. May he survive.
All right, other questions I had. Who's going to save Tony?
You guys know my idea, and I'm standing by. I don't know. It's probably going to end up being Rescue. I mean, it just makes the most organic sense, right? He records that message in a. So they're releasing these novels, right? And last year they released the Thanos novel, which was incredibly, fast. I don't know what I'm saying. It was quickly decanonized. Like the instant after it was released. The whole time in its promotion it says, oh, this novel is MCU canon. And apparently these new novels coming out are also canon until someone finds a continuity error or something, I guess. But according to one of those novels, Tony releases all sorts of his nanobites with these recorded messages across the cosmos. So it virtually could be anybody. But the prevailing theory on Twitter is that one of the nanobots find their way to Pepper Potts, who now has the rescue armor, and somehow knows where they're located and flies from Earth through the cosmos to get him.
Now, Adam, you said that we know who your theory is, but we do. The listeners do not. So, who is your theory?
Yeah, it's gonna be Valkyrie and Korg, man. That's who it's gonna be. I mean, we don't know that they're in it, right? I thought Valkyrie maybe was a scene or something. I thought at some point we thought Tessa Thompson was filming something. Maybe not. It just seems like what a good connection that they managed to run into like the Asgardian refugee ship, or the half of the Guardians that escaped, or not Guardians, Asgardians. I think that it just makes sense. It's almost too much of a coincidence though that they'll end up talking about Thor, and Korg's like, oh hey, I know that guy. But that's what I would like to see happen, but that is not what will happen.
Is there any possibility that nobody rescues Tony and that he dies, and that is the fuel that everybody else uses to get out of their funk, and just like, this is the straw that snapped the camel's back, Tony survived and he left us these inspiring messages, and now we go and save the universe? Is that...
I was wondering that in the last day or two. Like, it would be something if the first 2 minutes of the movie was him and Nebula just like suffocating to death. Jesus. And then they somehow go back in time to save him. Dude, I mean, they can make it dark, you know? Like, they're clearly starting in a dark place.
They killed Loki in the first 5 minutes or whatever. They could kill Tony.
But not the foundation of the MCU. I don't...
I wouldn't write anything off for this movie.
Do you think time travel's still going to be involved?
Oh, yeah.
Is there still a time stone in the Infinity Gauntlet?
Oh, I guess. But
Did Hope Van Dyne also very laboriously add into the dialogue, hey, Scott, go in and get the quantum energy. Oh, by the way, don't fall into a time vortex because I'm not planting anything for the next movie or anything. You know, like, that line to me is so obviously trying to set us up for something.
Right, okay. So what's your... Oh, so, I mean, you want to talk about Ant-Man a little bit? So I wanted to kind of talk about that last... So I'm not sure how to interpret that last scene. So, I mean, on the surface, it almost seems like if Scott Lang is... Like, are they looking at a live stream of the security gate? But then if you pause and look at the security gate, it doesn't look like anything that would be part of the Avengers complex. It almost looks as if it was several before it was even there. It almost looks like an old warehouse or something. So I guess what's your thought? I mean, I first saw that and my initial reaction was Steve asks whether or not if it was old footage, because he was under the understanding that Scott was lost due to the snapping, but since Scott's there, he just wanted to make sure it was live. But upon examining it further, maybe it's actually old footage, but the current age, Scott Lang is in old footage, which also raises a red flag because we just saw that guy not too long ago, but he's in this footage from the 1980s. I just threw a whole lot out there. What are your thoughts?
Oh, so you're saying, like, did they maybe find that maybe that footage is from the past of Scott Lang?
Right. The footage is from the past, but present-day Scott Lang is in the footage from the past. Because if you look, and then in the top left...
So when Cap says, is this footage from a long time ago, we think the obvious answer is, no, Scott's still alive. But the actual answer is, yes, it is. He traveled back in time somehow.
Right. So that's the type of thing. So Cap says, is this old footage? And I mean, initially I thought, well, no, it's like a live stream of the front gate. But maybe he says, is this old footage, to confirm it's old footage, because the guy that they know, you know, what he looks like, looks the same 20, 30 years ago, before the Avengers facility.
The only problem I have... He's got the same van. He's got the van from the end, like the van that has the mini quantum tunnel in it. at the post-credit scene, that's the van with him.
But we don't know it has the...
And he thinks the Avengers should know him. So if he's back in time, he doesn't know he's back in time.
Well, yeah, because 2018 Scott's the one back in time.
Right. But what about the van? Does it like
that van's,
suck itself into
no,
its
maybe
own...
that van's perfectly from... I mean, imagine this. Imagine Scott getting sucked into this time vortex and popping out, and he's walking down the street, no idea where he's at, and he sees a van that looks similar to what he has, because it's a time-accurate van, right? It's probably a 1980s van or something?
Yeah, it's an 80s conversion van.
So maybe... And then that would be, fans would be like, oh, it's his van. No, I don't know, guys.
But then he drives to the Avengers compound, which didn't exist in the 80s because it was built after the Avengers became a thing. And he knocks on the door expecting them to know him?
I don't know, guys. This is why I don't like time travel.
The way it could work is he finds himself stuck there, and he's like, I need to somehow send a message into the future. And so what he does is he goes to a Stark facility, and he talks into a security camera at the Stark facility with the hope that what is Friday the new AI?
Yes.
for Tony, in the hopes that Friday someday will find the footage in the archives and bring it to the attention of the Avengers.
That would be a reach. I mean, I think anything is possible, but that's a reach.
I mean,
I like the train of thought.
I like it. Yeah, I like it a lot, Adam.
I have no idea what the heck's going to happen. And that's the thing. I mean, we've seen... Are set photos spoilers? I mean, we've seen...
If you don't want to know something based on the set photos, go away and come back later.
So, I mean, we've seen set photos with Cap in his Avengers costume, right? It was kind of the OG Avengers costume. And in the same set photos... And Thor, and he was also... They were with Scott Lang with those devices on their hands. But in the trailer, Cap is wearing his Winter Soldier costume.
Yeah. So, kind of along these lines... if you had to guess the minute mark of the scene that's furthest into the movie that we saw in the trailer, does that make sense? I don't know if I asked that well. But, like, the scene in the trailer that's the furthest into the actual movie, at what minute mark in the movie do you think it is?
So I think the scene that's furthest into the movie, first and foremost, is Natasha and Steve on the Quinjet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where Steve says, well, it better work. Because obviously I think that's after they've met Scott or they've seen Scott's footage and they're going off on the mission or whatever. I think that 15 minutes, but that's probably pushing it. I don't think it's that. But at the same time, I mean, the cut's hovering around 3 hours. So I would say between...
3 hours?
Yeah. It might not end there, but that's where the current cut is, the Russos have said. So I would say I feel comfortable saying anywhere from 10 to 15. And I don't think in the Infinity War trailer last year, we got one of the last shots of the film in there with Tony holding his hand. I don't think we got anything like that. I think this was all super, super early teaser footage. But then they could throw us a curveball. Maybe they've battled Thanos or something in that, the Tony ships at the end or something. I have no idea. I would say 10 to 15 minutes because that's when Natasha and Steve are going off to rescue Tony or something.
So maybe the Tony goodbye scene really is Tony dying and it comes from the end of the movie, but they're making us think it's kind of where the movie's going to start.
Right.
Yeah. That would be interesting. I mean, we have 4 months, 5 months to speculate.
I'm suspicious that this really is... I bet they've not given... I mean, they've given us only stuff from the first few minutes. Like, my it's possible, I think, that the Ronin scene might actually be the furthest in. That they kind of make the plan, and then they jump over to Hong Kong or Japan or wherever they are to pick up, Clint on the way. But definitely, like, I think they're very specifically not telling us anything about this movie past very, very early on. They want to keep a lot of it secret. So let's ask this, and we'll kind of wrap this section up. Does this trailer change what you think about this movie at all?
It's confirmed the fact that I have absolutely zero idea what the heck's going to happen. I mean, I kind of had the sense of what was going to happen in Infinity War, obviously, but I mean, this one, there's virtually nothing. Is Thor in the raft, too? It looks like Thor's in a jail cell or something, right?
Oh, I figured he was just hanging out in, like, Scarlet Witch's old room or something.
Oh, maybe. It just seems like he's in, like, one of the raft cells.
I thought maybe he was on like a Quinjet or something in like a small area.
I love that he's given up Asgardian clothes and he's just wearing like a Banana Republic sweater or something. I thought that was kind of funny.
And he's decided to keep the short haircut. I'm like, or it's very soon. Either he's decided to keep the short haircut and we're like years in the future, or it's very soon after and he hasn't had a chance to grow his hair out.
Or that was part of the contract negotiations. He's like, listen, I'll take $1 million less, but let me keep the short hair. I hate that stinking wig.
Right. And I mean, there's nothing in this I don't know what to think. I mean, when does this...
I mean, there has been a lot of talk about hairstyles. So Captain America has shaved, which evidently set the internet on fire. I feel like the only woman in America with no strong thoughts over Captain America shaving. Yet Black Widow still has her weird blonde hair.
Right.
There's a lot of hair conversations coming.
And like the overshot of like the hover shot of the Avengers facility, it looks like the grass is growing out and all that stuff. I mean, I guess I don't know.
Their lawn maintenance people got snapped.
I know.
Half of their lawn maintenance got snapped out.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, how long is it after? Is it like immediately following Infinity War, or is it 5 years later, or is it...
Right. So the only thing that's tricky, there is some talk between when Scott is on the video. He says something like, I helped you guys a couple years ago at the airport or something like that.
Yeah, but that's not definitive. I mean, a couple could mean 2, it could mean 4, it could be...
Oh, granted,
No,
I'm not saying it's definitive. I'm just giving you any evidence that we have of when the movie takes place.
At least they're not... I think by now they've learned their lesson to not put... have Scott say, hey, guys, I met you 1.5 years... Hey, guys, I met you 36 months ago. All right, I think they learned after their 8 years later incident. Oh, the other big news is Shuri's apparently... got dusted, or missing at least. She's on Bruce Banner's hologram screen things.
Yeah.
Which we did not know.
We kind of teased about it, and I don't think it'll happen, but it would be real funny if they went through this whole, like, time-traveling extravaganza to, like, finally get to, like, some kind of MacGuffin that'll fix everything. And when they show up, Shuri's just sitting there, like, playing a mobile game on her phone, like, oh, I was waiting for you guys to show up. Glad you finally figured this out. You know, like, she's ahead of them the whole time. It was interesting that we got no Wakanda. Yeah. I was a little surprised that the trailer did not show us who's in charge of Wakanda. Like, we got no M'Baku or no Okoye. Like, it would have been, I don't know. I just would have thought that they would have, like, done a couple shots of, like, the different places in the world, and we just would have seen stuff, so...
I thought Wakanda was where we had the Thanos Scarecrow thing.
No, that's back on his home planet.
No, that's on Thanos land.
Aww.
Where he's growing artichokes.
Aww.
Or whatever he's growing.
Oh, is he baking bread and...
living on the land.
I hope he's happy.
I was going to say, it is, I don't know if this matters, but... it does help that Scott Lang knows where Avengers headquarters are, right? Yeah. Because he visited in Ant-Man. So, like, if he had to make his way there, he would know where to go.
If you guys want to upset yourself at continuity issues, somebody on Reddit posted, like, compound shots of every single time the Avengers compound has ever been displayed, and it doesn't look the same in any single shot. It's always different.
The compound?
Yeah, like the compound in upstate New York. Like in
Yeah.
Age of Ultron or Homecoming or whatever, it just looks completely like the buildings are arranged differently, but that's besides the point.
I just take that Tony's constantly tinkering. So I figure it's like the suits. As soon as he builds something, he goes, "Oh, I don't like this," and they rip down a wing and they build something new because he's rich and he can tinker with stuff like that.
We're talking like huge buildings being like moved. You're saying he rips that building down and moves it from north to south to east to west? Oh,
Yeah, he's got
nanobots.
Yeah, nanobots,
They
man.
can do things.
It's the nanobots.
Nanobots.
Or, I mean, maybe.
And robots. You would think he wouldn't have so many robots doing stuff these days, but, you know...
Iron Man 1.
He likes to redecorate.
Iron Man 1, it takes him like 2 weeks to get a functioning suit. Or longer. Like, he works forever. Then by Iron Man 3, he's like pumping a new one out every night while he sleeps. Like, he creates the specs and he goes, "Oh, make that, Jarvis." And then he wakes up the next morning, he's got a new suit. Like, man's got some manufacturing prowess.
Yeah, but I'm not...
I mean, but he made the first one in a cave. Like...
Yeah.
Or, I mean, maybe Marvel Studios just doesn't, have somebody assigned to Avengers compound continuity. I mean, that would be a pretty simple explanation.
Don't be so cynical.
I'm just saying.
Life's too short.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right, our main conversation. We're going to talk about our end of the year wrap up because we're not going to have time to next week with all the Spider-Verse stuff. We try to do this a little look behind at the year that is past. I made a list, guys, of everything that came out from Marvel this year on TV shows or films. Tell me if I missed anything. But by my recollection, we had Black Panther in February. We had Jessica Jones 2 in March. Infinity War hit in April, as did Legion Season 2. Luke Cage 2 came out in June. Cloak and Dagger came out in June. Ant-Man and the Wasp came out in July. September saw Iron Fist 2 and The Gifted Season 2. October, we got Daredevil Season 4. And then in December, we haven't quite had it yet, but Runaways Season 2 and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is about to hit. Is this the greatest Marvel year in the history of Marvel years?
No, it was awful. It was sad. It was horrible. We had to take a whole day of mourning this week. Come on, guys.
It was.
This year was amazing.
It was exhausting, but amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be really good to hurt so bad.
I still can't believe that Black Panther and Infinity War came out within like 2.5 months of each other. I mean, they're two of the top 5 Marvel movies, I think, by most people's accounting. And they just came out back to back. I mean, we were real spoiled to get that kind of content right together.
And I can't believe it was this year. I mean, it just feels like Black Panther was a different lifetime ago. I mean, not just because I've moved and made life changes and stuff, but it just, like, so much content this year.
This might be, I'd be interested. I don't think I know the answer to this from either of you. If you had to pick a best film of this year, what would be your favorite Marvel movie that we got this year? Oh, also, Deadpool. Deadpool 2 was not in my rundown. That came out this year as well, too. But anyways, what was your favorite Marvel film for this year?
Probably Black Panther. Yeah, Black Panther.
And why would you pick that above the other options?
So, I mean, Infinity War... I mean, yes, Infinity War hit this... I mean, it hit us all. It was intense. We had emotions. You couldn't stop talking about it. But I feel like Black Panther was a movie that I could recommend to anybody, whether they had seen a Marvel movie ever or not. It truly, to me, I mean, at the time I described it as feeling like it must have felt when Star Wars first came out, that it was introducing a whole new world. It was introducing cultural references that would live long beyond the time at the box office. And it really, I think it changed a lot. And I think a lot of that momentum was possibly halted by Infinity War. I mean, they created this massive new world and then they killed it. I mean, a lot of people, Black Panther was the first Marvel movie they saw. And then in the next movie, they killed T'Challa. to as far as anybody knows. But I think 5, 10 years from now, like, yes, Infinity War will be an amazing part of the Avengers universe and everything, but I think Black Panther will be the movie that we look back and see as groundbreaking, innovative, the beginning of something incredible. Um, I was really surprised by it. I was moved by it. I thought it was great.
Adam, what do you think? Favorite movie this year?
Favorite movie? Infinity War. Right? It's got to be Infinity War, man. I know you two probably prefer Black Panther. I mean, as a comic book fan, as a comic book reader, Infinity War was essentially the perfect comic book movie. You know, it was so comic booky. Yeah, I mean, and for that was my favorite movie of the year. Certainly wasn't Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Infinity War 2. I think what Infinity War is not probably getting enough credit for, or people don't consider enough. Black Panther is a really well-made movie, but I think Black Panther is a relatively conventional movie, at least as far as like plot and scope and all those kinds of things. Infinity War, the number of characters and the number of like settings and the number of plot details, the complexity of that movie to write and then actually like film and produce and create a movie of the size and scope of Infinity War. I don't think I'm overstating. This has never ever been done in Hollywood before. It's really the biggest movie that's ever been made. Maybe not as far as like sets, it's not like Titanic where they like built an ocean, to film the movie, but just the idea of all the moving parts and all the complexity of the narrative and the way that they made it work and the way that it could only work within the context of an interconnected universe like the MCU. Like all of those things make it a monumental achievement to me that it's just different. Now, I think you could argue that maybe Black Panther was a better movie than Infinity War in that they weren't chewing off so much and so they could make it higher quality. And so, I mean, I love them both, but for me, I just love the sheer, guts of trying to make a movie as sprawling as Infinity War is. So that would be my favorite, would be Infinity War. And in the live chat, Michael T. Ford said Black Panther felt bigger than comic book movies. And that is true. Like, I think that was kind of a bigger cultural thing. But then again, I don't know. I don't know what culture I live in. I feel like Thanos has become part of the culture too. But it is, I mean, in the United States, Black Panther did make more money. So I think it's maybe going to have a bigger cultural impact. All right, I think I know the answer to this, Rhiannon. What was your favorite TV show of this year?
I mean, Daredevil season 3. I mean, there's no competing with Daredevil.
Did I call it Daredevil season 4 earlier? Did I make that Freudian slip? I think I called it Daredevil season 4 earlier.
If you did, I missed it. I just saw that it ticked up to 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like after cancellation, it has gone up in its ratings. It was everything I wanted it to be. I mean, so long to wait for that, and it was great. And there was a lot. I mean, I think Marvel Television was amazing this year. I think we had lots of great shows. I think the most recent season of all of the Netflix shows was amazing. But I mean, Daredevil's my favorite, and they did a great job with it.
Adam, do you have a favorite TV show for the year?
Iron Fist season 2, man. No, not Daredevil 3. It's not even any question. Daredevil was pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean that's mine too. I know people are really sad that we're not getting any more of that incarnation of Daredevil, but it was also the best series finale for any Marvel show ever. I mean, the way that it wrapped up what we had was pretty amazing. So, yeah, I think Daredevil season 3 easily. There's some obvious honorable mentions. I continue to love Legion. We all thought Cloak and Dagger was much better than we expected. And Luke Cage and Iron Fist, I think, were both huge steps up. So, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of good TV. It's really weird. The year before, 2017, was Marvel's big crap year of TV. You know, like they put out Iron Fist 1, they put out Inhumans, they put out all this junk, and stuff kept getting renewed. And then this year they corrected course and they made lots of stuff and everything's getting canceled. So that's so bizarre. I think that's where, you know, the Save Daredevil people are getting their righteous indignation from. So
I mean, on that note,
What?
I canceled my Netflix.
Ooh.
I mean, it takes effect December 29th. Like, yeah, I'd already paid for the next month, so like it takes effect December 29th. I donated that first month to like the Fight Blindness Foundation thing that the Renewed Daredevil people are doing. So if anybody wants to talk about canceling their Netflix, I am here for you to help talk you into it.
Well, there goes our corporate. No more. Netflix won't be contacting us about any advertising on the podcast anytime soon.
Oh, Netflix can contact me. Netflix, you want to contact me? You want to talk me into renewing my subscription? We can talk on this podcast about what
you're doing.
Awesome thing you are offering for me to renew my subscription. But right now, you can suck it.
All right. What was the mistake? What Marvel property this year do you think was the biggest misstep, or the worst part of the Marvel film and TV year?
The worst part?
Yeah.
I mean, it was a really high bar this year. Are we just talking television?
Whatever. Like, what's one thing that came out this year that you're like, ugh?
Oh, Jessica Jones season 2. That was this year.
There we go.
Oh,
That's what I was going to say.
I forgot that was this year.
That was this year?
Yeah, that was by far the worst.
God, yeah.
It's really, I mean, because everything else stepped up, it really does stick out as the one kind of like turn in the punch bowl, right? Where you're like,
Right.
Man, how did this come? Like, what? Like it was just so inferior to season 1 of Jessica Jones.
What's the cause for that? I mean, it was Rosenberg was still the showrunner, right?
So, I mean, I feel like season 2 of Jessica Jones, like Rosenberg got to create the show that speaks to some things. I mean, you can't have season after season of about escaping from and recovering from a rapey situation. And, it was about healing from rape and everything in the first season. And I think the second season, she just struggled to find, she still wanted to find something that touched women as deeply and, hit that little note that she hit in the first season. And I think just failed. It was just like, here's our woman power show and we're doing woman things and look, we have lesbians and it just so I'm very interested to see where they go season 3. And I mean, and we look at this, and Jessica Jones season 2 and Daredevil season 3 both explored relationships with their mothers. They both brought in a mother that hadn't been around for most of the characters' life. They both had the characters growing close to their mothers, and they were so different in the way they approached it, addressed it, and made that a part of the story, which I was worried about when we knew that Maggie was going to be in DD3.
To me, it all comes down to villain. This is probably overly simplistic, but I think you can basically figure out how good a comic property is going to be based on how good the villain is. So Daredevil season 3, Vincent D'Onofrio villain and Wilson Bethel villain. Ooh, that's really good. Thanos is a great villain. Awesome. Killmonger is an incredible villain. Awesome. And then Jessica Jones, I mean, was there even a villain to Jessica? I mean, her mom was like a problematic character, but she wasn't truly a villain. And there was that Dr. Malice guy, but he wasn't really a big deal. And throughout all of that, I think that there's something to be said about, well, this is mature, grown-up storytelling, and sometimes in life there isn't really a villain. It's just that life is hard. But, I don't know. I think we tend to like it when there's a bad guy we can focus on. Speaking of which, what was your best villain of the year? Who do you think was the best bad guy in the MCU? Or in Marvel stuff?
Thanos, right?
It has to be Thanos.
It's gots to be Thanos.
I mean, I don't feel like you can compare Thanos
Right.
to Wilson Fisk. Like, I don't think they're even the same world. I mean, they're not the same world, but
See, I think I maybe liked Eric Killmonger a little better. I know Adam doesn't
I
like
don't
Killmonger.
at all.
I don't know, man. I love Michael B. Jordan.
No.
He-
I don't get the love, but I mean,
I mean, I had to be reminded why Killmonger was even a bad guy. I mean, I had to be, like, rewatch the movie to remember, oh yeah, he kills those people. That's why he's very clearly bad, and not just like kind of bad.
Yeah, he also is trying to proliferate the number of guns available to the world and very powerful guns. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, that's what makes him so awesome. You know, like that they that they were he's interesting because he has so many understandable motivations, but then like he hides how really terrible. In the end, he's like, listen, if we just give enough people enough weapons, they're going to start revolutions and kill all the other people. And it's like, oh, so we're going to fix the world through war. That sounds great. You know, like the fact that he hides the blood behind his concepts, I think is interesting. All right. Also, Michael T. Ford, the villain of Jessica Jones season 2 is Trish, which I'll take that. I know some people don't feel that way, but I thought that was interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Couple more questions. Who was your most valuable player in front of the camera? So who was on screen that you thought was best in Marvel stuff this year?
I'm gonna say it, and I'll probably get a lot of hate. Like probably so much hate. But I'm gonna say it, and this is a judgment-free zone, right?
Yeah, man.
MVP in front of the camera is none other than Tom Pelphrey.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
I'm with you.
I liked his performance probably best out of anyone. And yeah, there's probably gonna be people online. Oh, but Michael B. Jordan, nah, miss me with that stuff, please.
No, well, and that's what, because like we were discussing this on the Slack this week, like with Black Panther getting the Best Picture nod with the Golden Globes, but no acting nominations. Um, like I think it was a wonderfully crafted movie. I think everybody did a great job in that, but there's nobody in it that I'm like, yeah. I mean, like that I think put an Oscar-worthy performance.
And Chadwick Boseman is really good, but it's so understated that like it's not the kind of like sexy performance that gets award buzz because it's very like close to the vest, you know.
Yeah, I mean, well, and I mean, they created this whole, I mean, they created a dialect um, specific to Wakanda and did some amazing things there. And I mean, I loved Danae Guerrera's performance. There was hard for me to look away from Charlie Cox, but he just always does a great performance as Daredevil. Pelfrey was amazing.
So I'm actually going to agree with you, Rhiannon. I'm going to say Charlie Cox. I think the most emotional I've ever been in a Marvel TV show was that first episode of season 3, which I know we've talked about to death, but like just for me personally, the way Charlie went to the depths, and then that last scene in the apartment where he wants to kill Fisk so bad, but he also doesn't want to lose his soul forever. You know, like the depth of what Charlie Cox did in those scenes was incredible. And so I really do think, like as much as I loved Infinity War, it wasn't the acting that made me love Infinity War. And so I think Charlie Cox would be mine for in front of the camera. Which leads to behind the camera. Who's the creative type person? Directors, writers, producers. Like, who was your MVP on that side?
You've got Marcus and McFeely writing Infinity War, which was amazing. You have Eric Olson taking over Daredevil, and I mean, you guys know I set my sights so low on that. I was like, oh, they're obviously going to forget that they threw out these, they're probably going to forget about Karen's storyline. They're probably going to do this. They wrapped up so much stuff. They did an amazing season. But then we also have to look at your boy, over on Iron Fist that took, what's his name, Adam? You're gonna...
Raven Metzner.
Yeah. I mean, he took a show that was pure crap to most people for the first season. He took a lot of those reasons people had issues with it, and he worked this season through. Like, if there had been a third season of Iron Fist, I think a lot of people that never would have given it a chance would have really liked what he would have come up with. So they've done an amazing job this year with the writing staffs.
Yeah, I want to say, somebody like Ryan Coogler, but there wasn't a single person that had a more tough job than Metzner did on Iron Fist, right? I mean, he just absolutely turned around that property, and maybe he's not the crew MVP, but he definitely deserves recognition. But if I had to choose one MVP, I mean, it's hard to not say Ryan Coogler. I mean, the guys, they might not get an Oscar nom for acting, but I mean, Coogler very well could for directorial. So I would go with Coogler.
So, I'm going to keep with my Infinity War stuff. For me, it's Marcus and McFeely. I mean, what they managed to do is to take movies they did not write and continue the through lines of those stories and then make it a cohesive piece. Like Thor's storyline picks up from Ragnarok beautifully. Iron Man continues the Iron Man stories. Obviously, they already were doing the Cap stuff. All the Guardian stuff, they took James Gunn's work and continued it and moved it forward. And they brought all those franchises into one place and still gave it a meaning and idea. And then, in the end, chose to make the main character of the film the bad guy of the film. Like, it's just such a high level of difficulty that they pulled off that that's that for me. So, all right, last one, we'll wrap up. What's 1 minute? What's one moment? Like if you look back at this year, is there a scene or a moment in a TV show or film that for you is your favorite that kind of encapsulates the year in Marvel?
Other than the snap, are we just gonna say like beyond Thanos snapping his fingers?
No,
Right.
I mean that's good. I hadn't even thought of that. So the snap is
You hadn't even thought of that? Caleb, you're fired. I'm editing the podcast this week.
Moment's just such a broad thing. The best moment, our favorite moment. I mean, outside of the snap, I mean, the one I still get my breath taken away is the 12-minute fight in Daredevil.
Oh yeah.
The one take fight. I mean, it's just crazy. Every time I watch it, like I was explaining, who was it? I was watching it with my parents last week or something. And they're like, "What do you mean one take?" I'm like, "Well, just watch it. You won't notice cuts or anything. This is a 12-minute take. It's just incredible how they did that." So yeah, outside of that, I mean, that was one hell of a moment. That's for sure.
I'm a big sucker for when Thor arrives in Wakanda.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And he screams, "Bring me Thanos." Yeah. That's mine, man. Oh, I still I almost had to get up out of my chair, right. I was just overcome with yes, excitement. So yeah. I'm looking forward to Endgame has to have a moment. Cap needs to say Avengers assemble and all the heroes are back and they all have one gigantic group shot. We need this. I need to see all 35, 40 characters all together, all fighting Thanos, spinning camera. Come on.
You think Iron Man's going to get the Thor entrance of Endgame? How he's trapped in space the whole time and gets rescued by Carol or something?
Oh, that'd be interesting.
But yeah, I agree with you. We need that group shot. I'm not sure we will though. I'm trying to temper my expectations.
We need some catharsis, okay? I think that does it. We'll wrap it up there. We'll go to the mailbag real quick and see what people sent us. Alex Howes on the website. He would like to see the Netflix characters wrapped into the movies without erasing the continuity. So he felt like maybe something like Jessica Jones could go to an FX or Hulu and keep going, but he'd like to see like an Iron Fist and Luke Cage show up in the movies, but be the same actors and have the same backstory as the Netflix stuff. It would be nice to see it keep going. I just wonder if Disney will be petty enough to want to kill the continuity so it undermines the value of the product. Like, that sounds terrible, but like, I could just see Marvel being like, no, that's not the real Daredevil. If you want to watch fake Daredevil, go ahead and watch it on Netflix. But real Daredevil is now this. Maybe not, but I wouldn't put it past him.
I mean, I don't want to fill anybody with false hope. But if you look at that statement Charlie Cox made, he can't believe. He's like, that small chance that nobody ever sees me as Matt Murdock again.
Love Waffle asked if we edited well to make it look like we happened to talk about Daredevil's cancellation in the middle of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. getting renewed. And no, that wasn't clever. It just really went down that way. Those of you who can see the live stream will see Rhiannon's face get ghostly white and her jaw drop as we're talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
You'll even see her opening her wine bottle.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could. You guys, I know you don't listen to the pod. I mean, I don't, except for I edit. You can hear the pop of the cork very clearly on the podcast. Like, me or Adam are talking, I hear pop, and I'm like, okay, that's awesome. I made sure to keep that in. I think that does. I'm sure maybe there's some stuff on Twitter, but I didn't get to it. But thank you all for listening and all that stuff.
No, while we were recording, we had somebody on Twitter that evidently, like, Spotify gives you your year-end review type thing. And AJ Argillan, his Spotify, like, premium, it told him that his favorite podcast was Marvel News Desk.
Oh, thanks, AJ. That's exciting. Yeah, I think I need to be better about keeping track of our Spotify listens, because I think it's become a significant portion of what's going on. So if you listen on Spotify, send us a tweet or something, so that we can get a better sense. We have stats for this kind of thing, but it's in a different spot and I haven't looked at it. So we'd love to hear from you, Spotify people. It's the end of the show, so I'm going to say thank you for listening. Spotify, podcasts, however you listen, we're really thankful that you do. Thanks for doing it and telling your friends. That helps our show exist and be here. If you want to send us a message, there's lots of ways you can do it. You can tweet us at Marvel News Desk, and on most weeks, so we do check that. You can also communicate with us via our marvelnewsdesk.com posts each week. If you want to support the show, we'd love for you to give us $1 a month over at patreon.com/marvelnewsdesk, and you will get our special annual episode. The 2018 annual will come out here in 3 or 4 weeks, something like that, which will only be available to you on Patreon. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/marvelnewsdesk, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at watch.marvelnewsdesk.com. You can help the show be more visible to others if you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Thanks to Tim Cox, who gave us our logo. You can see him on Instagram at TimVCox. And thanks to Alvin for the theme music. You can find his music on At the Skull School across a variety of social media platforms. All right, next week, into the Spider-Verse and Spidey talk. And then we'll be taking a little break for the year so that we can spend some time with family and stuff. But another week to go next week, so we'll see you then.